Hello BBC Panorama. I would like to start off by thanking you for giving neurodivergent individuals, particularly those with ADHD, the opportunity to correct and advise you on your future endeavours. Either the person who wrote your most recent documentary on ADHD ejaculated far too early in the creative thought process, or this project was clearly commissioned by the Tories, who would rather play a game of let's cover it up and pass the fucking buck than attempt to reform an outdated system that continues to discriminate against neurodivergent individuals and clearly needs a fucking revamp. As an ADHD individual myself, I would like to offer you my abilities so that you may have a better idea of how to conduct your future documentaries should you choose to concentrate on neurodiversity ever again. By the way, I'm a trained journalist who also studied documentary, so I understand very well how the process works. Some ideas for you on subjects that you could cover. Number one, why are ADHD people seeking a diagnosis even paying to go private in the first place? 2, why the ADHD assessment waitlists are so long for everybody else, bar one journalist who decides to pretend they have ADHD, knowing full well they do not have ADHD, gets to skip the entire queue and waste the time of one assessment when there are people that have been waiting for these assessments and continue to wait for these assessments for years. Would you have made this same documentary about bipolar disorder? When I went to college, bipolar was trending at the time, in the same way that ADHD is trending. I never saw any documentaries about that. Why? Did you think I was exaggerating when I say that we live in a society that still thinks it's acceptable to discriminate against neurodiversity? Keep listening. Number 3, how about the lack of research into ADHD women that has caused so many of us to go undiagnosed and misdiagnosed for decades, and the lack of research that still goes on? There is no research into women and ADHD and hormones and the fucking menopause, when it is clearly a very pressing issue. This isn't just an issue of neurodiversity, this is a feminist issue. You can even get Davina McCall in on that one. I think that she would enjoy it. In fact, I love her. She's brilliant. Maybe you should get her involved on your next documentary. Number 4, why is ADHD so underdiagnosed in the first place? The world-leading experts on ADHD all unanimously agree that it is massively underdiagnosed and misunderstood. Documentaries like yours don't really do much to eradicate the shame, misunderstanding and stigma that surrounds ADHD and quite often prevents people from wanting to even reach out for a diagnosis in the first place. Number 5, why are so many people with ADHD misdiagnosed with mental health conditions they've never had, given the wrong medications to take quite often for decades? They end up identifying with labels that don't stick, going through unnecessary trauma and shame as a result of this. They end up living in the dark, being misunderstood by everybody around them, being misunderstood by themselves, never reaching their potential. Can you imagine the conflict, the trauma that this creates in a person? Just in their body, let alone their life. Can you imagine? Why is nothing done about this still? Number 6, why is training on ADHD still so inadequate that people don't understand ADHD in females? And in schools, we parents quite often have to take the reins to get our kids put forward for an assessment because teachers still don't understand the signs. And why are GPs not trained in ADHD? When we go to our GP saying that we want an ADHD assessment, we are literally talking to somebody who does not understand ADHD and putting the power in their hands. How is that even right? It doesn't make fucking sense. Number 7, why is the education system, the curriculum, still geared towards reaching neurotypical standards only when we have long realised now, and there is a growing number of us, that are neurodiverse? Why are we still all held to one standard? There is clearly more than one brain type in the world, and we all have a right and a purpose to be here. Number 8, how were past generations affected by this? By being treated in asylums back in the day for illnesses they never had, receiving treatment that has since been made illegal because it's so inhumane. You know, my mum was one of those people, and she ended up with severe mental health issues that were lifelong. And I've met other women through my work too who have experienced the same thing, who say they think that their mental health problems are so severe because of the wrong treatment that they received. And how comes nobody has been offered any kind of compensation at all for the devastation that this has caused on individuals, their families, and generations as a result of these misdiagnoses and the ill treatments? Shocking. If you wanted to go on to concentrating on how this creates generational trauma within families, then this one would be a fucking bleeder, I assure you. How do I know? Because I've been living this one. I'm a cycle breaker. I speak about it. I've only just started to speak about it. And the messages I get from people that it connects with are really emotional. This is a widespread issue that people want to have a conversation about. Number 9, this one is really important actually. Why do we call ADHD ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, when the name is factually, literally, morally and ethically incorrect? It's fucking embarrassing, dude. Number 10, this one is disgusting. How are mental health professionals diagnosing conditions that 99% of the time they have zero lived experience of without ever seeing their brain? Do you realise that brain scan imaging has existed for a very long time now? We have good, well-trained individuals within the mental health sector. I'm not about to start slamming it, but I am slamming the system. It is outdated, it doesn't work, and it fucking needs a serious update. If I broke my arm and went to my doctor, I would be sent for an X-ray. Why don't I get the same treatment for my brain? Why must I sit with someone I've never met before in my life and be made to feel as though I have to feel comfortable enough to divulge all my vulnerabilities, answer any question they will ask me, a person who doesn't understand my reality, while they ask me questions from a tick sheet and count up the answers and try and find something, a label that might stick? You may as well be sitting there throwing darts in the dark together and waiting for something to fucking land on the board. Just a few closing notes, BBC Panorama. It's very clear that your boy didn't have ADHD. You know why? Because anyone with ADHD wouldn't have been able to partake in a piece of work that was so morally wrong and creatively premature. And you know what the saddest thing I found about your documentary was that you never once spoke to a neurodivergent person during your research phase, did you? Because if you had, they clearly would have advised you against doing the documentary. And let me tell you something else as well. Had you taken the time to speak to somebody who has been diagnosed as an adult with ADHD, you would actually realise something else as well. We don't need people invalidating us anymore. We've been invalidated our whole entire lives. So much so that when we discover our ADHD, we actually know we have it. We know. We're not silly. We're very smart. We have this super spidey sense and pattern recognition and strong intuition. We're able to put things together so well that sometimes people mistake us for being a bit psychic. But the sad part is, we've never been able to really reach our potential with this because our whole lives we have been invalidated by society that have tried to get us to reach neurotypical standards. When we struggle, we've been told we're too sensitive and dramatic. We've been emotionally invalidated. We have got a name for our brain type that doesn't even make sense. There is a stigma. There are so many things stacked against you as an ADHD individual coming out to the world and trying to get an assessment that it's quite normal for you to really doubt yourself. In fact, we struggle with crippling low self-esteem as a result of having been invalidated our whole lives. And during this time, when there is a large number of adults waiting to be diagnosed, there are already lots of naysayers out there saying that ADHD isn't real, doesn't exist, we're all fucking exaggerating. We don't really need the BBC to jump on board with it as well. If you want to attack the mental health system, then by all means, go ahead. It's clearly fucking broken, and I am in full agreement on that. But leave us innocent, vulnerable individuals out of it. Just do your research and be a bit more inclusive about it. By the way, speaking of inclusivity, I think it's clearly time you actually got someone with ADHD on your team. You can say whatever you want about us ADHD baddies, but the truth is, we can write a documentary 10 times better than that one. I don't call us baddies just because we're beautiful, but because our Ferrari brains are capable of fucking masterpieces. So come on, BBC Panorama, give us a call. I'm Susie. I'm an ADHD baddie, advocate and coach. Follow for more.